Story 1. When I was at my lowest, all I wanted to do was sleep. I went to bed super early and got up late. I just always felt too tired to do anything besides what I felt obligated to. I was excelling in my coursework for college, but literally that is all I had energy for. Story 2. They're suddenly withdrawing from social activities, putting on a fake smile, and over-apologizing. It's like they're trying to convince everyone they're okay. But their eyes tell a different story. Story 3. Social avoidance. Go to work, go home, eat, sleep, and repeat. Very quiet. Vague responses to many things. Very closed off. Let yourself go. I know because this is me. When I was severely depressed, I gave up completely. I only left the house for work and would spend for whole days just staring at the walls or not even leaving bed. I stopped wearing underwear, barely ate, and let my hair grow wild and unkempt. When you stop putting effort in is when you really know you don't care about anything anymore. Story 4. Every time someone tells you they are living the dream, my personal experience is that can be translated to, I will pay you $100 to hit me with your truck. It is only obvious once you know the translation, though. Story 5. I knew for years that a man at work was suffering. At the end of the day, he would leave immediately, never stayed a second longer than he had to. He wore the same clothes, coat, and shoes for years and drove a battered old car really slowly. I suspected for a long time that he was depressed, drinking, or both. His self-neglect was impossible to miss. He lived alone and, unbeknownst to him and me, I had a friend who lived in the same building as him. I was over there one time, and he was walking ahead of us as we approached the entrance. He was all over the place, stumbling and swaying. My friend pulled me back and told me to wait until he had gone in. She said, "That's that man. He is always drunk." I told her that he worked at my place and tried so hard to hide his problems at work. Poor bloke. Alcoholism is a horrendous disease. Story 6. Giving away stuff. When I was in a really bad and dark place, I gave away furniture and my belongings to friends. Nobody noticed or seemed to care. They just accepted it happily. Story 7. They do not talk unless they absolutely have to speak. I have struggled with depression and anxiety my whole life. I have felt it and seen it. Another sign is not wanting to do things. It takes great effort to do menial tasks. It is like you are in a bottomless pit without the energy to claw your way out. Story 8. Frequent sarcasm, avoiding eye contact, and suddenly canceling plans at the last minute. It's like they're carrying around a suitcase full of emotions they're not ready to unpack. Story 9. An obscene amount of self-deprecating jokes. Withdrawing. Being overly emotional about little things but insisting it's nothing and they don't want to talk about it. Excessive weight gain or loss. Sunken eyes. Low energy and apathetic. Story 10. A lot of people say, not talking as much, and just saying, I'm fine. But I've experienced the opposite. Talking way more than usual to cover that they are not actually telling you anything. Story 11. Looking down. A blankness or numbness in their face. Sadness behind their eyes. I tell so much. Avoidance. Behavior that is drastically different than usual, as it could be a coping mechanism. Quickly glossing over their feelings or apologizing for them. Asking about you immediately after sharing their own experience. Constant downplaying of their own challenges. Story 12. Having absolutely no plans for the future or being very vague about their plans. Back when I was really depressed, my plan was to just keep going until I graduated and then kill myself right after graduation. I did not tell anyone this, of course, but when I was asked about what I wanted to do after high school, my answer was always, I do not really know. I got better, of course, but a lot of the tells other people mentioned just did not apply to me because I was really adamant about making sure nobody else found out what I was going through. Story 13. Well, I received a message from university friends on Messenger that I never replied to. The funny thing is that I actually called one friend a few days back. But he was on the road at the time, so I told him I would call back the next day. And I think that was 3 days ago. So the lack of communication is one sign. In my case, I am not suffering. Not sure what it is, though. I am just sitting at home, eating, sleeping, watching TV, but somehow not happy. Story 14. They drop hints if you really talk to them. I was in a small group and we were talking about pornography struggles. One of the questions was aimed at single guys, and I was the only single guy, divorced. I dropped hints that I didn't have an accountability partner and that things weren't all right. All they had to do was listen closely to the words I used and ask if I was struggling, and the floodgates would have opened, but they never did. I finished with "being divorced sucks, by the way," which in context should have been a red flag. Nobody noticed. Sometimes the suffering entails that nobody listens to your subtle hints that things aren't okay because those hints are all you can muster and have the courage to speak up about, and yet they fly over everyone's head. Nobody takes you aside later. Nobody asks if you're actually okay. I think I'm doing better now, but it still sucked. Really sucked. I know it might not be an obvious sign, but if you're paying attention and really listening, you can't miss it. Story 15. I think their posture and eyes give a lot away. I have come across a few individuals in my life where you just get the sense something really awful has happened to them and they are like a shell of a person. Story 16. We're always cheerful. We never complain. We never ask for help because we already know help isn't coming. There is no knight in shining armor coming to save us. Story 17. I watch my sibling jump from job to job, stressed out every second, rarely smiling or laughing, unable to read, watch shows, sleep, or just go for a walk without interruption. They don't really talk to anyone and run away from any social interactions, even from my family. I think that's a level of suffering no one deserves. Story 18. I can speak for myself, but I tend to become more and more avoidant. I withdraw significantly even as someone who is generally the bubbly, outgoing type. I also tend to mask a bit more when I have to be present for things. I don't want people to suspect anything. So when I become silent, I just tell them, "Oh, I'm just focused on something." I also try to keep up appearances. Can look different for everyone, for sure, but that's how it is for me. Story 19. They always have a reason for why they can't engage in an activity they used to enjoy, or they constantly come up with a last-minute reason to cancel a plan. Story 20. Some people will throw themselves into work, exercise, or other distractions to avoid facing their feelings. They might always be busy, but it's often to avoid dealing with what's going on inside. Story 21. Withdrawal. We start hearing from them less, and they start taking longer to respond or not responding at all. You stop seeing them at places and activities they used to frequent often. Unfortunately, these people slip away so slowly that we don't realize it until it's too late. Story 22. From personal experience, lack of energy physically, mentally, and emotionally, body language, dark or disturbing comments, lack of sleep, lack of a healthy appetite, and not being social or canceling social events at the last minute. Story 23. As someone who does suffer silently, I'll tell you, when I'm around friends and coworkers, anyone will tell you I'm usually in a really good mood, socializing with everyone, joking around and having fun. But when I'm home, I'm not stable at all. A couple of years ago, when I was 28, I lost both of my parents, and that tore me apart. I'm in a not-so-great relationship and work a very stressful job in law enforcement. If anyone knew how bad I am suffering, they would be shocked because of how well I carry it. I just don't want anyone feeling sorry for me or taking pity on me. I hate that. But I can tell you, as one of those people, that people who are always chipper and in a good mood all the time are secretly in the worst pain you could imagine. Story 24. When they are extremely quiet and do not talk much after they would always talk to you in the past. Also, when they isolate themselves from everyone and stop doing things they used to enjoy. Story 25. Apparently, your face says it for you. At work, I was asked multiple times all sorts of, "What happened? Didn't get enough sleep?" etc. It took me some time to process that I really was in the wrong place at the time. Story 26. Sometimes there are not obvious signs. You can pay attention, and if you think someone is struggling, you can reach out, but it is always good to reach out regardless. Take genuine time to talk with the people you care about and make sure they are doing all right. Story 27. If someone is usually calm and suddenly becomes irritable or easily frustrated, It might be because they are internally dealing with stress, anxiety, or depression. They may snap at people or seem unusually short-tempered without explanation. Story 28. They tend to either be completely isolated or very social, especially when it is unlike themselves. Putting themselves down, being quiet, moody or irritable, especially at relatively minor things. They mention they have trouble sleeping, gain or lose lots of weight when they are not sick or on a diet or workout, lazy with things like hygiene, tidiness, presentation, and so on. Story 29. More often than not, there are no obvious signs. You get great at faking it the longer you hide. Oscar-worthy performances happen on a daily basis. Most of us just don't realize it. Story 30. They stop taking care of themselves. You see this in small ways, though. You notice their hair gets greasier by the day. Their teeth are now yellowing. They do not smell as fresh as they used to. When I am deep in it, I just cannot take care of myself. Showering and teeth brushing just stop, as gross as it is. I look back at pictures of a happier me, and my hair and skin were so bright and healthy. Story 31. I'm seeing a lot of people saying, avoiding people. They suddenly stop socializing. They withdraw from everyone. But I feel like this isn't always the case. This year has single-handedly been the hardest year of my entire life. I've lost 4 people, planned 2 funerals by myself, got sick, my health plummeted and took me away from everything I loved doing, and learned many hard truths about people I held dearly. My partner and my best friend both moved away, and I tried my best to maintain the relationship long distance. A few months ago, I hit rock bottom, had to start emergency treatment, and the only thing I always heard was, "You clocked out an hour ago. Why are you still here?" I hung out with people at my job because it was the only time I had people to talk to, and I was incredibly lonely. I clung on to people for dear life and didn't realize why until things got moderately better. I'm aware of it now, but I still do it because I'm still struggling. People don't always shy away. Story 32. When you get to know someone, you notice their patterns. And when their patterns are off, something isn't right. Maybe they are also more withdrawn. Or maybe it's the opposite and they are louder and more outgoing. Any kind of shift in personality in your friends should give you immediate pause if you care for them. Story 33. I wish I had a straightforward answer, but sometimes the signs are embodied. It's not just about having sad eyes or a sad expression. There could be an overall posture of defeat, a hesitancy in one's gestures, even a palpable fear or nervousness that others can feel. When I was in a horrifically abusive relationship on a particularly bad day, I went to the doctor to ask if anything could be done about my temporomandibular joint issues, which were bad enough to affect my hearing in one ear but have gone away ever since my divorce. Out of nowhere, the doctor who saw me asked if I was feeling safe at home. I blurted out yes and diverted the topic by saying that my temporomandibular joint issue was caused by work-related stress. I'd never been asked this before, and I wonder if he picked up on something from my overall appearance and body language. Story 34. Overly nice, overly apologetic, overly helpful. People like this are usually being, at minimum, mentally abused either by someone or even to themselves. Story 35. A noticeable decline in personal grooming, hygiene, or appearance could indicate that they are not taking care of themselves due to emotional distress. This could be a sign of depression or feeling overwhelmed by life. Story 36. Everything that encompasses my existence at work. Constantly smiling and nodding. I campaigned for my managers to cancel mandatory attendance at team meetings because I want to just not be around people. I just want to work and be left alone. I overload myself with tasks so I can have something causing a different flavor of stress for a change. It's all entirely unsustainable. Yet here I am, full of golden retriever energy when someone needs me to help, but I'll be crying at my desk almost every morning. Story 37. Withdrawal. They may start distancing themselves from social events, family gatherings, or friends. If they were previously social and suddenly prefer to be alone, it could be a sign they are overwhelmed or depressed. Story 38. If someone avoids talking about their feelings or quickly changes the subject when deep or personal topics arise, they might be trying to protect themselves from dealing with their emotions. Story 39. They develop avoidant behaviors. My brother was dealing with some emotional issues and just went into full hobo mode. He quit his job, sold all his stuff, lived in his van, and avoided calling or answering calls. He basically spent 6 months smoking pot in his van and watching movies on his phone until he ran out of money. It was sad, but no matter how much I tried to help, he blew me off. Story 40. Hygiene. If someone stops brushing their hair, showering daily, or wears the same clothes over and over, normally they're just so drained they don't care and push through their day without doing the menial hygiene things. But when you stop taking care of yourself, you are showing neglect towards yourself, which typically has depression fueling it. Story 41. The vibes. No one suffers silently. People just don't pay any attention. Once someone's vibe is off, most either pretend it isn't, also known as narcissistic behavior, or they straight up leave. Story 42. From someone who has undiagnosed premenstrual dysphoric disorder. Wanting to isolate a lot, isolate from everyone in your life. Staying in bed to the point you go without showering or brushing for days. Their rooms are littered with takeout boxes, expired milk, and bread in the fridge. No energy to make food for themselves, so all the meals are takeouts. Wanting to constantly end it all, but having no energy to get out of bed, or only living for the sake of loved ones.